Ladies and gentlemen, most people roll out of bed every morning with no clear idea why they're doing it. The alarm goes off, they groan, maybe hit snooze a few times, and eventually drag themselves into the day like they're reporting for a sentence, not a mission. And that's the exact reason life feels heavy, dull, and repetitive for so many people. They're waking up because they have to, not because they want to. They're waking up out of habit, not out of intention. But here's the truth. If you can't answer the question, why am I waking up today? With a reason that lights a fire in you, you've already surrendered the day before it even began. You've already agreed to coast, to react, to let the hours happen to you instead of making them yours. Your why is not just a motivational poster word, it's the fuel source of everything you do. It's what makes the difference between waking up tired and waking up ready. It's what separates the people who drag themselves through life from the people who attack life with energy. When you have a reason that matters to you, something that you can sink your teeth into, something that makes your heart race a little when you think about it, mornings stop being a chore. They become a launch pad. You stop rolling out of bed because you have to pay bills or because you don't want to get fired, and you start waking up because you're building something, because you're chasing something, because you're becoming someone you actually respect. The problem is, most people never define this why for themselves. They borrow someone else's, they wake up for the paycheck, but they've never asked what that paycheck is truly for. They wake up to meet responsibilities, but they've never thought about where those responsibilities are leading. They wake up to avoid consequences, not to chase rewards. That's why the days blend together. That's why weeks disappear without anything meaningful changing. Without a strong why, life becomes a treadmill. You move, but you go nowhere. And just like a treadmill, it gets exhausting without any scenery changing. When you actually sit with the question, why am I waking up today? It forces you to look beyond the surface. The first answer might be something practical, because I have to go to work. But if you dig deeper, you might find the truth, because that work is funding my dream of traveling. Or because that income is giving my family stability. Or because I'm using this time to learn skills that will free me later. And if you dig even further, you start to connect it to something deeply personal, because I want to prove to myself that I'm capable of more than I thought. Or because I want to live in a way that inspires my children, or because I refuse to waste the time I've been given. When your why hits that level, when it's personal, emotional, and bigger than the temporary comfort of staying in bed, that's when mornings change. You don't need 5 alarms, you don't need a pep talk. You don't need to scroll your phone for 20 minutes to wake up. Your mind snaps into gear because you know you're not just waking up to exist, you're waking up to create, to move forward, to get closer to something that matters to you. Without this purpose, negative feelings take over by default. You'll wake up and the first thoughts will be about what's wrong, what you don't want to do, what you're avoiding. Your brain will scan for problems because it doesn't have a mission to focus on. But with a clear why, your attention gets pulled toward action instead of complaint. You start thinking about what needs to be done to move toward your goal, and that shifts your state instantly. Purpose is the antidote to apathy. It's like this. Imagine you're told to get up at 4 a.m. to do something you hate. You'll drag your feet, you'll resent it, and you'll probably find an excuse to delay. Now imagine you're told to get up at 4 a.m. to catch a flight to the one place you've always dreamed of visiting. You'll wake up before the alarm. You'll have energy before you even have coffee. That's the power of having a reason. The time you wake up doesn't matter. The task ahead doesn't matter. The why carries you through it. This is not about finding a perfect once-in-a-lifetime purpose. It's about choosing something that gives meaning to today. Your why can evolve over time. In fact, it should. What drives you now might not drive you in 5 years. But right now, in this season of your life, you need a reason strong enough to pull you out of bed with energy, no matter how you feel in the moment. It could be a long-term vision of the person you want to become. It could be a short-term goal that excites you. It could be a commitment you've made to someone you love. It could be the pride of knowing that you're building a life instead of just passing through one. And you have to remind yourself of it every single day. Write it down. Say it out loud before you go to bed. Picture it the moment you open your eyes. Because the human brain is forgetful, it drifts toward comfort, toward routine, toward the path of least resistance. If you don't consciously bring your why into focus, it will get buried under emails, notifications, and obligations before breakfast. And then you'll find yourself back in that place where mornings are slow, where days feel heavy, where negativity creeps in because you've given it space to live. Your why is your mental alarm clock. It's the voice that says, "Get up, we've got something to do." It's the thing that makes you sit up instead of rolling over. It's what turns the question from "Do I have to get up?" into "How fast can I start?" Without it, you're just going through motions, and when you're just going through motions, you're easy prey for stress, boredom, and every other form of negativity that feeds on aimless living. But with it, you stop waiting for motivation to magically appear, because you've already decided what you're getting up for and why it matters more than the comfort of staying still. Energy is not something you either wake up with or you don't. It's not some mysterious gift handed out to a lucky few while the rest are left dragging through life. Energy is a decision. It's a choice you make moment to moment, no matter how you feel when you first open your eyes. People think they're tired because their body is weak, when in reality, most of the time they're tired because their mind is weak. They've trained themselves to surrender to whatever emotion or state hits them first thing in the morning. They wait for energy to arrive like a package in the mail, instead of generating it themselves on demand. Negative feelings, fatigue, and low moods often feel like heavy chains, like something you're stuck with until they magically dissolve. But they're not chains, they're clouds. They drift in, block your view, maybe cast a shadow, but they have no actual substance. You can blow them away with movement, with decision, with action. The moment you decide you're not going to live inside that cloud, the moment you stop giving those feelings the authority to dictate your actions, they lose their grip on you. But most people give up too quickly. They wake up, feel low, and instantly think, "This is how the day is going to be." That's not reality, that's resignation. Here's the truth. Your body responds to your mind far more than your mind responds to your body. When you decide to be energized, your posture changes, your breathing changes, your facial expression changes, and your body follows. If you slump, shuffle, and sigh all morning, of course you'll feel drained. You're reinforcing the exact state you're trying to escape. But if you stand tall, move with intent, and breathe deeply, you create momentum. The human body is built to generate energy when it's in motion. Sitting around waiting for motivation is like waiting to get warm before you start moving. You get warm by moving. The reason so many people stay trapped in low energy states is because they confuse feelings with commands. Just because you feel tired doesn't mean you have to act tired. Just because you feel unmotivated doesn't mean you have to behave like you're unmotivated. Feelings are signals, not orders. You can acknowledge them without obeying them. And when you start acting with energy even when you don't feel it, something interesting happens. The feeling often catches up to the action. That's why a workout you didn't want to start can leave you buzzing with energy. That's why starting a project you've been avoiding can suddenly make you feel focused and alive. You can flip the switch from the outside in. Energy is also tied directly to what you focus on. If you wake up and immediately dwell on what's wrong, what's missing, or what you're dreading, you drain yourself before you even step out of bed. The mind burns energy at an incredible rate, and negativity is one of the most expensive mental habits you can have. Every thought has a physical cost. When you focus on problems you can't control, you're pouring your limited energy into a black hole. But when you shift your attention to what you can control, what you're aiming for and what's possible today, your energy rises because your brain is being fueled by vision instead of fear. People sometimes think energy is about rest, and yes, recovery matters, but endless rest without purpose will not create energy, it will destroy it. You've probably experienced this on a lazy weekend where you slept in, lounged around all day, and somehow felt more tired than if you'd been productive. That's because energy is a cycle of use and renewal. You generate it by spending it in ways that give back to you through movement, through meaningful work, through conversations that light you up, through progress towards something you care about. Passive rest without engagement is like leaving a car idling. It burns fuel without taking you anywhere. It's also important to understand that energy is contagious. Who you spend your time with can either amplify your state or drain it. Surround yourself with people who complain, procrastinate, and dwell on the negative, and you will mirror that energy whether you want to or not. Spend time with people who move quickly, think positively, and take action, and you'll feel yourself rise to match them. This isn't about fake optimism, it's about alignment. When your environment reflects the energy you want, it's far easier to sustain it. The choice to have energy begins the moment you wake up. If the first thing you do is reach for your phone and scroll through a feed of chaos, arguments, and bad news, you're handing over your mental state to strangers before you've even taken your first breath of the day. That is not the behavior of someone in control. If instead you start by moving your body, feeding your mind with something empowering, and reminding yourself of what you're aiming for, you set a tone that carries into everything else. Energy doesn't appear out of nowhere, it's built by the rituals you commit to. Movement is the fastest way to shift your state. You can change your entire mood in less than a minute with a burst of physical activity. It's not about becoming a professional athlete, it's about telling your nervous system, we are alive, we are ready, we are moving forward. That signal alone is enough to begin breaking the fog of negative feelings, and once you break that initial fog, momentum takes over. You start to see opportunities you were blind to when you were still lying in bed. You start to think differently. And because you think differently, you act differently. Energy is not something you have to wait for, beg for, or hope for. It's something you choose to generate. It's a product of your movement, your focus, your decisions, and your refusal to let temporary feelings control your permanent direction. Every time you choose to move instead of stall, to focus instead of drift, to act instead of complain, you're proving to yourself that energy is under your control, not something that happens to you. And once you understand that, you stop giving negative feelings the power to dictate your life, because you know you can always create the state you need to do what matters. What you focus on expands. It's not just a nice quote to post online, it's the way your mind is wired to work. Your brain is constantly filtering the endless stream of information around you, deciding what's important and what can be ignored. That filtering system is called the reticular activating system, and it's influenced entirely by what you choose to pay attention to. If you spend your time focusing on problems, setbacks, and fears, your brain will start scanning the world for more of them. It will highlight every possible negative, magnify every obstacle, and downplay every opportunity, because you've trained it to believe that's what matters to you. You'll walk right past chances that could change your life because your focus is tuned to a different frequency. Think about when you buy a new car or a certain type of shoes, and suddenly you start seeing them everywhere. It's not that they magically appeared in greater numbers overnight. It's that your brain now considers them relevant, so they pop into your awareness. The same thing happens with your life circumstances. If you wake up thinking about how stressed you are, how unfair life is, or how much you dislike your situation, your brain will go to work collecting evidence to prove those thoughts correct. It will find every inconvenience, every irritation, every piece of bad news and put it in front of you like it's building a case. You won't even notice the good because your mental filter is set to find the bad. The law of focus works both ways. If you deliberately put your attention on solutions, opportunities, and actions you can take, your brain shifts its search pattern. It starts to notice resources you didn't see before. It connects dots that felt unrelated. It points out moments where you could make progress. You become more creative, more resilient, and more decisive because your mind is scanning for ways to move forward instead of collecting reasons to stay stuck. The external world might not have changed yet, but the lens you're looking through has, and that changes everything you experience. Negative feelings thrive in a mind that is focused on the wrong things. When you give all your attention to what you can't control, you feed frustration and helplessness. When you give attention to things that scare you, you feed anxiety. When you dwell on what's missing, you feed a sense of lack. The energy you give these thoughts doesn't just stay in your head, it spills into your behavior. You become slower to act, more likely to procrastinate, more likely to doubt yourself. It's not because you're lazy or incapable, it's because your focus is locked onto a path that leads nowhere. Shifting focus is not about denying reality or pretending problems don't exist. It's about deciding what deserves the majority of your mental energy. Problems are real, but so are solutions. Fear is real, but so is courage. Lack is real, but so is abundance. Your mind cannot hold both with equal intensity at the same time. Whichever you choose to focus on will grow stronger, and whichever you neglect will shrink in influence. That's why two people can face the exact same situation and produce completely different outcomes. One is looking for a way forward, the other is looking for a reason to stop. It's easy to see this in sports. When an athlete is focused on winning, they move differently. Their posture changes, their confidence grows, they take risks they believe they can handle. But when they focus on not losing, their energy shrinks. They play defensively, hesitate, and make mistakes because their brain is feeding them warnings instead of opportunities. Life is no different. If your main thought each day is "don't fail," you'll live cautiously, you'll talk yourself out of moves you're capable of making, and you'll sabotage your own momentum. But if your thought is "find a way to win," your brain will look for openings, strategies, and angles to make that happen. Your focus is also deeply tied to the questions you ask yourself. If you keep asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" your brain will bring you every reason it can find, and those reasons will reinforce a negative state. If you ask, "What's one thing I can do right now to move forward?" your brain will start producing options, and each option will give you a direction to act on. Your emotional state follows the trail your questions create. This is why intentional focus is so powerful. It determines the quality of the answers your mind produces. It's important to realize that focus is not a one-time decision. It's a skill you build. The world is full of distractions that will try to hijack your attention: news headlines, other people's opinions, social media noise, and your own old habits. If you don't take control of your focus, something else will. That's why you have to practice bringing your attention back to what matters every time it drifts. It's like training a muscle. At first it feels like hard work, but over time it becomes second nature. One of the fastest ways to shift focus is through intentional gratitude, not the vague kind you post online, but real, specific recognition of what's working in your life right now. When you make yourself find 3 or 4 things to appreciate, even in the middle of a bad day, you're forcing your brain to scan for positives. That scan changes your state in real time. It doesn't erase problems, but it stops them from dominating your perception. From that slightly higher emotional ground, it's easier to see solutions you couldn't see when you were buried in negativity. Focus also dictates how you experience time. When you're locked on problems, time drags because you're stuck in loops of overthinking. But when you're focused on building, creating, or moving toward a goal, time feels faster because you're immersed in action. This is why people who live with clear intentions often seem more energized and fulfilled. They're spending their time in states that feed them instead of states that drain them. What you choose to look for each day is shaping your life whether you're aware of it or not. Your mind is like a search engine, and it will always return results based on the terms you give it. Feed it terms like opportunity, solution, and progress, and that's what it will bring you. Feed it terms like failure, problem, and unfair, and it will deliver more reasons to stay exactly where you are. The quality of your focus determines the quality of your days and, over time, the quality of your life. Negative feelings are like quicks, and the more you think about them, the deeper you sink. The mind has a strange habit of feeding whatever you keep your attention on, and when you dwell on how bad you feel, you give that state more strength. You replay situations, imagine worst-case scenarios, and analyze emotions from every angle until they grow far bigger than they were in the beginning. The longer you sit in that mental space, the heavier it becomes to move. Action is the only thing that breaks the cycle. You can't think your way out of a mood that was created by overthinking in the first place. You have to act your way out. Action disrupts the loop. It interrupts the conversation you're having with yourself about how hard things are. The moment you move, even in the smallest way, you send a signal to your brain that you are not frozen, you are not helpless, and you are not at the mercy of your feelings. That signal starts to shift your state. It's not about pretending the negativity doesn't exist, but about refusing to let it control the next thing you do. Once you take that first physical step, you create momentum, and momentum has a way of pulling you further than motivation ever could. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're stuck in negative feelings is waiting until they feel ready to do something. That day rarely comes. Readiness is a side effect of doing, not a prerequisite for doing. The moment you take a step, write a sentence, make a phone call, go for a walk, clean your desk, start the workout, your brain starts to produce energy and clarity. You begin to feel a shift because you've replaced rumination with movement. And that's the key. You cannot be deeply engaged in meaningful action and completely consumed by negative thoughts at the same time. It's the same reason athletes use warm-up drills before a game. They're not waiting to feel hyped. They move their bodies until the energy and focus appear. You can apply the same principle to your life. If you start the morning feeling heavy, don't negotiate with yourself about it. Stand up, stretch, drink water, write down a quick plan, take one small action that aligns with where you want to go. The act of doing begins to erode the power of whatever was holding you down. Action also changes your focus, and focus changes your emotions. When you sit still, your mind has room to wander, and in low states it tends to wander toward the negative. But when you're immersed in doing, your attention narrows to the task at hand. You stop rehearsing problems and start engaging with solutions, even if they're small. That shift in focus alone can lift your state enough to take the next action, and then the next. It becomes a chain reaction. Movement fuels progress, progress fuels confidence, and confidence weakens the hold of negativity. The trap is thinking action has to be massive to count. People wait for the big move. That will turn everything around, when in reality, it's the small, consistent actions that have the most impact. You don't have to solve your entire life today. You just have to do something that points you in the right direction. That could be organizing one corner of your space, sending one message you've been putting off, or spending 10 minutes on a skill you want to develop. These are small wins, but they compound, and each win is proof to your own mind that you can influence your state. Action also builds evidence that counters the lies negative feelings try to sell you. When you feel low, it's easy to believe you're not capable, that nothing will work, that there's no point in trying. But the moment you take action, even a small one, you create a piece of proof that you can move forward. That proof chips away at the credibility of the negative state. The more proof you stack, the less convincing those feelings become. Over time, you start to trust action over mood, and that's when you break the pattern for good. There's also a physical side to this. Your body is built to be in motion. Movement increases blood flow, delivers oxygen to your brain, and releases chemicals like endorphins and dopamine that directly influence your mood. When you sit still in negativity, you deprive yourself of that natural boost. But when you act, you tap into the body's ability to shift your state chemically as well as mentally. It's not just mind over matter, it's using matter to influence the mind. Even creative or mental action works. Writing, brainstorming, planning, learning something new. These are all forms of engagement that pull you out of passive consumption and into active creation. Negative feelings thrive in passive states when you're simply absorbing whatever your mind serves you. But the moment you create instead of consume, you're taking control of the flow. You're giving your brain a job, and that job keeps it from looping endlessly on the same toxic track. It's important to understand that action doesn't mean you have to feel like doing it. In fact, the best time to act is often when you feel least like it, because that's when action has the greatest power to shift you. If you only move when you feel good, you're letting your state control your life. If you move regardless of how you feel, you're taking control of your state. That distinction determines whether you stay stuck in cycles of negativity or break free from them. Every single time you choose action over stagnation, you're teaching your brain a new pattern. Feelings are not in charge, decisions are. And decisions become easier the more you practice them. The first step is always the hardest, but once it's taken, the second is easier, and the third easier still. That's why action is the master key. It doesn't just help you escape a negative moment. It trains you to handle the next one differently until eventually you stop waiting for the mood to change and start creating the change yourself.